Pitch, network and learn with industry leaders in the fast-moving world of digital-first content. Only at the TellyCast Digital Content Forum 2024, Europe's only industry event dedicated to the digital-first content sector. With speakers from Meta, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitch and many more, the TellyCast Digital Content Forum takes place at the BFI South Bank in London on the 7th of November. Panels, keynotes and masterclasses during the day will focus on creator economics and content monetization, video podcasting, brand-funded digital content, smart multimedia production techniques and more. And new for this year is the Bridge Buyers Lounge, where delegates can pitch their projects directly to the UK's leading digital content commissioners and buyers, including A&E Networks UK, UK TV, ITV Studios, BBC Studios, Blue Ant Media, Quintus Studios, Abacus Media Rights, Echo Rights, and Little Dot Studios. Event sponsors include 4 Studio, Connect Management, Deadline, The Drop, Quintus Studios, Tanuki, and Boom PR. Super early bird tickets are available now from £249.99 plus VAT plus booking fee. But be quick, they're only available for a limited time at that price. Go to digitalcontentforum.com. That's digitalcontentforum.com to get your tickets now. The TellyCast Digital Content Forum. Pitch, network and learn, and gain the knowledge to succeed in the social video economy. Hi, I'm Justin Crosby and welcome to another TellyCast. This week we're in Edinburgh for the TV Festival, where the movers and shakers of the TV industry come together every year to debate the key issues of the moment. My guests are 2 senior UK TV producers from the worlds of scripted and unscripted entertainment. First up, we have Quay Street Productions' Nicola Shindler OBE, a renowned TV producer and 11-time BAFTA winner, known for her work on acclaimed series like Happy Valley and Last Tango in Halifax. And then I chat with co-founder of Curve Media, Camilla Lewis. Camilla's a prominent TV producer with a reputation for creating high-quality, factual and documentary content, including Our Dementia Choir with Vicky McClure, Salvage Hunters, and the forthcoming potential mega-format Chess Masters. For videos featuring the movers and shakers of the TV and digital content industries, just hit the subscribe button in the episode description or search TellyCast TV on YouTube. I hope you enjoy the show. So my first guest on this week's Edinburgh TV Festival special show, our 200th episode, is Nicola Shindler, CEO of Quay Street Productions. Nicola, how are you? I should say Nicola OBE as well.
Oh, no, you really shouldn't. But yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us and spending time with us. I realise it's a really busy couple of days for you. Now, Edinburgh TV Festival is known not only for celebrating great content creators and producers and channels and really delving into details of the industry, but also bringing up new entrants to the industry. A lot of students are here. Can you just give us a bit of a snapshot into how you originally got into TV and what's your career journey from how you got into where you are now?
I wanted to work with writers always, so wanted to work on scripts. Didn't kind of know that was a job, so I started working in theatre at first in the publicity department, but kind of realised by talking to the literary managers that what I was interested in was script editing, which was a job I didn't know existed, but it's because I love drama and because I wanted to work with writers. I applied for everything that I could, and I ended up being getting a job as an assistant script editor at the BBC, and so from there worked on scripts and then went into producing, and I decided to set up my own company in 1998 because I wanted to work on things that I felt really passionate about. And I was in a fortunate position that the people who were running independent drama at that moment I'd worked for as a script editor or producer, so it just felt like a logical leap. So then set up Red Production Company, which I was at for a long time, until 21. And then I've just set up Quay Street Production Company to do the same thing, to do independent facing, mostly contemporary, provocative drama, which goes across streaming and broadcast.
And this is a collaboration with ITV Studios, I believe?
Yes, it is, yes. So it's an ITV Studios company, but they're very good at letting you run it yourself and decide what it should be and give it a brand.
Now, you've become really well known for collaborating with some of the most talented writing talent in the world. Lenny Henry, Sally Rainwhite, Russell T Davies, to name but three. Do you have a particular approach? What is it about the way that you produce shows that allows you to work with such amazing talent and keep on attracting them?
I would like to think that I work really hard. So I think that they appreciate that, because they're giving away, when you're working with a writer, they care so much about what they've given you. It's come from their heart. They've worked so hard on it. So it's my job to protect it, to make it better, and then to put it on screen in a way that they appreciate. So I both put the writer at the centre of every single production that I do, so they feel like they've got a say in things. They've got a say, from costume design to the script. They have input, and I think that's really important. And I just work day and night to make sure that it's the best that it can be. So they've given me something that they love, and I have to give something back to them that is worth it. So I hope that's why they stick together. Also, those people you mentioned, sometimes we've just got the same taste. So it really helps if we think good television is the same. We want to make the same show. It's hard when you have a different idea of what works to people you're working with.
Yeah, and what is not unusual to scripted production, but can be a very charged atmosphere, can't it? Because there are lots of different opinions, from a director to various people on set, and obviously creators and producers. Do you see yourself as a bit of a politician as well? Because there's a lot of problem solving, isn't there, in scripted production?
Yes, there is, and I don't know. Politician's the wrong word, because to be unfair to politicians, I don't think it's about telling people what they want to hear. I think it's about deciding which notes are valid, which would make the show better, which just would make the show different, which isn't what we set out to do, who I should be listening to, listening to people and whether their problems are genuinely going to impact the programme or not. It's all those things. It's a constant balancing act. Yeah, it is. Some days it can just be a problem after a problem after a problem. But you actually have to learn to let a few of them wash over you, because they're going to go away naturally, and decide what are the important ones that you have to tackle. And
looking over your career, that you've really enormous number of hits and successes, but also you've managed to balance popularity with integrity. And that must be one of the most difficult things to do, because some the more edgy subjects and the way that you've approached things have brought some of those subjects to the mainstream. I mean, what's the secret to
I don't think the two things are that different. I mean, I don't think they have to be set apart, because everything that we do, I want the maximum number of people to watch. So I've always been very populist in my taste and in the drama that I want to make. That doesn't, to me, mean you can't tackle a subject like the HIV/AIDS crisis in the 80s, because it's a universal subject. And so I think you could look at that and say, oh, that's a small show that's difficult and it's issue-led. Or you could look at it like Russell did, which is, it's a hugely important thing that people need to hear about. And it's about these joyous young men whose lives were taken away at a point where they were having such a good time. So you can always make something have a positive spin and feel watchable. And I think that's my job, actually. It's, even with something going back as far as Hillsborough, the drama documentary I made, it's a horrific subject matter. It was looking at parents who'd lost their children. It was in every way hard, but Jimmy McGovern still managed to add a warmth and a humour, because that's who the people were. So that's my job. My job is to make it accessible for people, and I just don't think you should compromise one or the other, really.
And many of your hit shows have really been based on true stories, and we've seen lots of changes and challenges, I think, on particularly local stories in the UK. Now we're looking at globalized, more and more globalized market, and as the industry's contracting, there's more and more pressure to find stories that will work globally as well. But then at the same time, there's a real importance of telling local stories. We've seen the impact that, for example, Mr. Bates versus Post Office has had. I mean, how do you see those types of projects going forward? Do you think there will always be the opportunity to tell those stories with the market the way that it is now?
I know sometimes I'm a bit overly optimistic, but I do believe that, because, again, just using It's a Sin as an example, It's a Sin was about a difficult subject matter. It was about the UK, and it wasn't in any way global, and it was about a specific group of people and their experiences in London at that time. and it was one of our biggest international sellers. So I think it's about making the material feel universal, not because you're casting an American star or doing anything compromising, but because it's like that, the emotions at stake are universal. Even not a true story, but look at Happy Valley, which was so specific about a very small part of a very small part of Yorkshire. And we made no concessions to trying to make that global. And that sold absolutely everywhere and then went on to sell more and more. So, but I think that's because there was a truth at the centre of it. And that truth was local to that part of Yorkshire. But still people in, Buenos Aires, but could relate to the idea that that's a working mother who'd lost a daughter, who was trying to look after her grandson. You know, those themes are universal.
Universal human stories, essentially.
Yeah.
And now you were on a panel earlier on looking at the future of TV. Can you give us one or two key takeaways that you took from that session? Did you take any?
Yeah, loads. I thought the man who worked with YouTube,
Jordan.
Yeah, I thought he was just fascinating, and he was just so straightforwardly kept telling us people aren't going to come back to television in a way that you do have to listen to someone like that. I think that's fascinating. I think that looking at the expansion of television production companies and how long that's sustainable, I think that is a really interesting conversation to have. So yeah, I thought there was a lot of very interesting, just even also talking about the BBC and the future of those, our terrestrial channels is really important.
And does the digital first environment, I mean, obviously you're right at the other end of the scale when it comes to high budget scripted shows. Do you ever plan to work within digital first area? I mean, obviously the funding is the key issue. But as you look forward to the next sort of 5-10 years of Quay Street and the way that the industry is changing, I mean, how do you see it evolving and what are you doing to prepare for the next stage of entertainment?
Digital first, even I know you're really talking about like short form and everything, but we've worked with digital only channels to make shows for them, which is a very different budget level, and I find that a really great experience. In terms of the short form digital, it isn't something we're looking at right now. It might be something that we start looking at in the coming up in the next few years. I think we are primarily storytellers and makers of drama. It doesn't have to be high end, it doesn't have to be big budget. That's also what I was trying to say this morning, which is I think there should be more place for lower budget dramas, and then I think we'd get more of a diversity again. But in terms of that element of the future, it isn't something that I've done a lot of work on.
Well, and looking to this next generation who are coming predominantly from a digital background, whether they be creators or producers and creators, and we're seeing a lot of the students here at Edinburgh making their first steps in the industry. I mean, what would be your advice to them as they make their first steps into the industry? I
think to be very truthful to what they're passionate about. So if it's documentaries, then to look at why and what truths they want to tell and who they want to put on screen. If it's scripted, then it's about really committing to stories and storytelling. And are you a writer? Are you a director? Are you a producer? It's about finding out what you want to do and then really committing to that, rather than just wanting to enter television, which I think I think that's a really hard thing to try and do.
It's a shrinking industry as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a kind of I think perhaps people who are really committed to a real specialism will still succeed. But
that's what I feel. Yeah. I think you have to commit and you have to know what you want to do.
And as we look forward as well for Quay Street, anything you can tell us about the future, any developments? I'm sure there's lots of things you're working on that you can't
I can't tell you, no, we've got loads of great development. We've got a brilliant development team. They're all really great. They're all a lot younger than me, so they are looking to the future. And yes, we have really good shows across the board. So, with our terrestrial channels, with broadcasters, with streaming, that we're hoping will be happening soon. We are just finishing off 2 shows which we've already announced, one for Netflix and one for Amazon. So we're all very busy up there.
Okay, Nicola, I know you've got a dash. Thank you so much for joining me on TellyCast, and all the best.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
So my next guest on this week's Edinburgh TV Festival special show is Camilla Lewis, CEO of Curve Media UK Indie. How are you doing, Camilla?
I'm doing very good. Excited to be here with you, Justin.
Well, it's fantastic that finally we get to meet in person, because our last show was, it was a couple of years ago, it must have been. Was that during lockdown? I think it probably was, wasn't it?
The whole thing's a blur, but I know that I had fond memories of it, Justin, otherwise I wouldn't be sitting on the sofa now. So here I am with you.
Brilliant. Well, great to have you return onto the show. Now, lots of talking points about Edinburgh TV Festival. It's always a place for debating, for a lot of the channels sharing what's going on. And we all know it's been a tough couple of years, really, for the TV industry when it comes to all the business models changing. Starting with the first session, give us your sort of takeouts and give us our listeners a bit of a flavour of the discussions that are happening at Edinburgh this year.
Well, it's kind of interesting reading the room, isn't it? Because obviously you have to have a certain amount of money to be able to be here in the first place, unless you're one of the young people who've come in on a kind of like a talent pass, so to speak. You know, it's quite difficult because you don't get a cross section of the industry, but yet you're talking about a cross section of the industry. I mean, we're really talking about people who can't afford to be here a lot of the time, because most indies can't afford the very expensive hundreds and thousands of pounds it costs.
Well, it's so the normal pass price is about £1,500, isn't it? I think, and then staying in
accommodation
Edinburgh.
and looking the part and being up for it and looking like, and also having the right attitude. I mean, you kind of have to be here and you have to be on call, ready to be bump into any commissioner at any moment and be upbeat and positive and look and feel like that. Now that's quite hard if you've had a year or so of awful, not getting any commissions, having to fire people, things feeling miserable, low profit. I mean, and all of us to some degree have had bits of that happen anyway.
And then spend £4,000, because it's actually more expensive than going to MIPCOM.
Exactly. So £4,000 to get what I think it is worth it for me, and I think it has proved to be a very important part of my career. I've been coming for really, I daren't say, but quite a lot of years is all I'd say. And obviously it's got its ephemeral nature, and people do look over your shoulder to see who else is coming up, and the sessions sometimes can feel a bit anodyne, and you can feel that the channels are under strong PR representation of what they will and won't say, and you kind of know what they're going to say before they say it often. Having said that, I think around the edges, around the cracks, there's still those conversations, what used to be when I was at the BBC, which is when I trained, we used to call it the conversations in the corridor, and that's what would get you the job. It would be how you spoke to someone in that corridor in that moment, and then you'd end up with the job of doing whatever it was you were doing, because you did that bit right. And those are the bits that aren't charted. And I think Edinburgh's full of uncharted, interesting bits. And so for me, the sessions themselves, I mean, they're always a mixed bag. There's some really exciting and good ones, and some that I feel really, passionately thrilled that we've done. I thought the opening session was excellent. I thought the McTaggart was brilliant. I think James Graham's a lovely, lovely man. I was slightly worried about him doing it, thinking, will he carry the gravitas? But because of what he spoke about and how he spoke from the heart, I think it really spoke to the audience. And I think people felt there was a genuine, he's a very humble man, and he's a delightful and an exceptional talent. So I think people really related to that. And I think it did continue an important conversation. We need more firebrands going on in the industry. So I don't know yet if I felt that there's been a bomb thrown and someone's gone, get rid of the BBC, what does that look like? Or something that feels shocking. I mean, I was having that conversation. I spoke to Charlotte Moore yesterday about it, and saying that I think that's what we need in an industry where we need to be just like call to arms. I think at the moment we all feel a bit scattered. I think the pandemic plus the cost of living crisis has been a clusterfuck of making us feel separate, and that we're not in a community, an industry that is a communal industry, and you have to work very hard to make that community work. I mean, I do a lot of making it work because that's one of my skills. I can bring people together, and I'll do the party or have the breakfast or do something that brings people together so we feel like something's happening. But I'm one indie, and actually really we need the broadcasters to step up and recognise that there was the days when Channel 4 reception or BBC reception or Netflix reception was an exciting buzz place where you'd bump into loads of other producers and you'd be kind of like having good conversations, and that would be very creative. Because going back to Edinburgh, sorry I digress, but you'd asked me about Edinburgh, those are the bits that are really, that money can't buy. The conversations I've had with people in passing, a comment, sometimes it might feel like a bit bitchy gossip, but often there is a bit of content there too that's worth it.
And it's interesting what you said about maybe looking at things in a more extreme way, but thinking about the industry in a very different way. And I think we've seen a lot of digital first content represented, or discussions happening, podcasting to TV and digital first strategies as well. We've seen them represented more, finally. But when we come into the traditional linear broadcasters, we saw Channel 4 announcing that they're back to pre-COVID levels of commissioning, which every producer I've spoken to says that they can't actually believe that. It doesn't feel like that anyway. I don't know how that's sliced and diced. ICV saying it's not due to lack of money that they're not commissioning. How do you see it? What conversations are you having, around those two broadcasters in particular, and the business that they're doing?
Well, I mean, definitely Channel 4 feels more buoyant than it did, say, 6 months ago. I think in the last few months there's been a definite feeling that the commissioners have felt much more upbeat. It can't all be lies, damn lies and statistics, or whatever that quote is. Some of it has to have some substance to it. And it feels like ideas that we've talked are progressing a bit further in a way that was different for Channel 4. So it does feel better at Channel 4. They are certainly greenlighting stuff. In terms of proportionally whether they're greenlighting as much as they in 2019, I don't know. It's a good line, and it's one that Ian stuck to when what he was talking about and repeated quite a few times. So I think that's the line. I don't think it's very easy to get around that line unless you know all the numbers. So I don't know if that's actually true or not. I don't even know what that means for 2019. A good year or a bad year? I mean, I don't remember. As I said, I barely remember what happened last week. So I think it's hard to tell. And I think they're very party line, all the broadcasters, and it has always been thus. So you don't get necessarily a whole story from directly talking. It's almost what they're not saying and what's not being focused on. I think what's more concerning for me is I think people are looking at a kind of like an either-or future, and I'm not, right? So I think there's not a future it's all about streamers and terrestrial television is dead. I think we're in a mixed ecology, and I think we're in a mixed ecology for a long time. I think our approach towards content has to be multifaceted. We have to look at lots of different ways of making content. We have to think about different forms and different price points of making content. Not everything can be hugely expensive, and actually just speculating widely to accumulate, I suppose.
Yeah. And just finally on the broadcaster side, unfortunately, we didn't have a Channel 5 session. Ben Frau was ill, not able to make it, and which was kind of strange that I think a lot of his commissioners couldn't stand up in his place and talk about anything. But tell us about what you're up to at Curve Media, because you've had a really big commission in the chess genre, haven't you? So tell us about that.
Wow, chess as a genre, I love that. I don't love that because I want to be the only thing in chess.
Well, you're the leader of the genre already.
I am the leader of the genre, whatever that means. It's a real pressure is all I can say. So, I mean, it's interesting. I was just talking to actually Claire Stiller at the BBC, and she said something really sweet to me about it. She said, I've been reading about you and chess, and she said, I just want to say to you, that's an idea from the heart, and I know it's because she knows the backstory behind it. And actually, she's absolutely right. I think, we all get commissions, and some of them, I love every commission that I get, and every single one means something to me. But this has come from a place of very big darkness for me in my personal life, and therefore it means that much more. And it's really interesting when you're pitching something and you're being honest and exposing yourself in a way that maybe sometimes it feels quite uncomfortable for people to do, how much more kind of like a traction you can get. I mean, without being cynical, I think it's just better to be honest. So my daughter was incredibly ill in the pandemic. She was 16. She really, really was ill, and terrible self-harming. Thought she was suicidal at some points. Psychiatry involved, local CAMS. It was awful. 2 years of not going to school, and it was very, very, very tough to handle as a parent. And I love her to pieces, of course, but felt I couldn't really easily communicate with her, and every day of mine was caught up with her. And although I'm lucky enough to be the parent of 4 children, in fact I've got 6 in total if you include my stepchildren, so quite a lot of children in my life and a lot going on in my life. Slightly busy company, doing lots of different productions. Really my whole focus was my daughter, because it became all about, as people say, when you've got an ill child, that's what it's about. Anyway, she was my focus. It took a long time for her to get better. This is a good news story, by the way. Before you get the hankers out, you can cry at this point, but it doesn't stay like that. After a very, 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 very painful and difficult journey, she began to recover, and I think some of that was down to having very serious therapy that helped, a little bit of medication. I'm not sure if it helped or not, but actually the main thing that made a big difference was she got addicted to chess.com, and she'd been playing chess a little bit when she was younger, but not massively. But in terms of that generation, they often feel like they've been cut out of society a bit. They've been demonized for using their phones all the time. Suddenly there's this amazing thing where they're online, you can play chess. It's beneficial to your brain. It makes you clever, so to speak. There's a community of people who do it, and she had that sort of brain that worked well with feeling in control of something, and rather than doing something to harm herself, she poured her control into that and got very obsessive about it, which was extraordinary to watch, because suddenly I had a daughter whose interests became admittedly pretty myopic about chess, but she's now in the top 200 of her age in the world.
Wow.
No, she's phenomenal at chess, and she's taught me so much about that world that I can play chess, but I mean, I'm pretty shit because, like everyone in television, I'm probably veering on the ADHD spectrum and lose interest after 5 minutes. But I do try to think, but I'm good at strategy, so I like the strategy. And I've often described my job as being like playing chess in the sense that you have to think about loads of different things at once and think strategically about how you might
Looking
move.
ahead.
What exactly,
what
what someone's going to do next, how that might work. Sometimes I get it wrong, sometimes I lose my king, but often I win. I don't know what to say.
So that's extraordinary. So had she played chess a little bit when she was younger?
She played it a bit. I mean, she played it a bit, but it was not a massive factor in our lives. And I wasn't playing chess all day, every day at home. I mean, you know, I'm married to an intellectual, so I think that kind of helps. And her dad had been quite good at chess when he was younger, so he was good. But it wasn't like it was a massive part of our life. But it sort of spoke to them, and it's interesting because it's one of the number one. I think it's the number one downloaded app of all time on Apple, and it's consistently. It's the fastest growing sport in the world, right? In some countries it is the number one sport, which is...
It must be the oldest. Or
it's been going on forever. It's in every culture. It's cross-class, my job is about coming up with program ideas. So there's lots of things that happen because of this. So because I'm not very good at kind of like splitting it, I'm very unboundaried, you may have noticed. I'll just tell you it all straight away. Which is I like to think my greatest strength and often my greatest weakness, and can get me into a lot of trouble. I try to be quiet about things I shouldn't be. But going back to her, I think this was amazing. She got really into chess, and I realised it was a way of communicating with her. So I started learning about it too. So it's like the social history of chess, learning that about. And she would be so passionate about a game played by Bobby Fischer in 1972 and tell me why it mattered. But I could see this passion in her. I thought, wow, it can't just be my daughter, who's the only person on earth who's really passionate about this and really interested in this. Obviously, she's a bit of a geek, but she's got this complete obsession. Let me just finish the story about her so your listeners aren't sobbing. So what happened with her is that not only is she fully recovered, thank goodness, but she was went by a boy's name on chess.com, and a boy in America started talking to her as a boy, as a friend, and they became friendly over a couple of months. And then he said to her, will you tutor me? You're brilliant at chess. Will you tutor me? And she said, I will, but I just need to tell you before we go online and see each other, I'm actually not a boy. I'm a 19, she was 19 by this point, 19-year-old girl. And anyway, they're desperately in love. They have seen each other. I mean, he's been over here 4 or 5 times. She's right now in America with him. They are completely in love. She's doing a degree now. She's happy as can be. She's been, working in a hospice as a volunteer. She's a fantastic thing. And she's still phenomenal at chess, unbeatable at chess. I mean, if anyone who wants to know, her rating is 2,300, which means something to those that know. And they'll go, what? Because that's the thing.
What an amazing story, Camilla.
Yeah.
I mean, and now we're going to talk about the TV show.
Yeah, well, that came out of it, of course.
But that's, I think, clearly, as you say, when you have something that you're super passionate and invested in, people can tell, whoever, and commissioner, and obviously that struck all the right chords. So.
I mean, going back to Edinburgh, where did I first pitch this? I pitched this to Charlotte Moore directly at the McTaggart dinner. I went up to her this time exactly last year, 1 year ago, at McTaggart dinner, and I didn't think of this as a programme idea. I hadn't thought of it as a programme idea when I was going through the process with my daughter. And it suddenly struck me, like it sort of hit me in the face. Hang on a second, organising principles for things that matter. This is a game that's as old as time, that people take very seriously. It's deeply psychological as well. It's about how you play. The way you play says so much about who you are as a person and what you bring to it and how redemptive it can be. And for so many people, it wasn't just my daughter whose mental health had been massively improved and aided massively by chess. It was thousands, millions of people across the world who found that it's been incredibly helpful for their mental health. So suddenly I think, hang on, emotions, psychology, tactics, strategy, this actually is as a something, it works. So eventually, like an idiot, it dawned on me. Number one downloaded app. Maybe there's something in this, Anyway, I pitched it to Charlotte Moore last year at Edinburgh, and to be fair to her, her instant reaction was, "That's brilliant. We'll do it. Now go and persuade everyone else in the channel, Camilla." And so it didn't take much, to be fair. I mean, it always takes a long time to get a commission, but. As you can tell, I'm extremely passionate. It's a love letter to my daughter, this. That's an unfuckable force. A mother's love of their child is all I can say. And I feel it really strongly. So there's been ups and downs in this process whereby, I felt the programme idea was threatened from outside forces, which I will not go into on this podcast. They know who they are. And people have tried to take it away from me, so to speak. It was never going to happen. This is something I'm making, and I'm making it and hopefully paying homage not just to my daughter, but so the people who really respect and love a game that I have no vested interest in directly, only indirectly. But I do recognise it's a massive it's a massive emancipating thing to do by yourself that therefore speaks to people's psychological states and emotional states, and I can tell a beautiful story, I hope.
And so tell us about the show itself. It's a series?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about it. Give us the lowdown on the programme.
So it's a competitive format. So basically it's matching what happens in real life. Competitions are played with chess people. They have to be of a certain level. So rather like MasterChef, you wouldn't just get, maybe you and me, Justin, maybe you're brilliant, I don't know, but average people playing chess, and being a bit shit. There'll be, really good chess players. We have booked, and I can't unfortunately tell you who they are, the most amazing commentators. One's quite well known and one is not well known, but in the world of chess it's hugely known, and they're both phenomenal commentators, and they will give us a kind of like allow lay people to understand what's going on, but also not diminish, which is the real challenge, the chess audience from not understanding what games are. I should just explain to you, Justin, so on chess.com, the reason why they're so popular, these games, is unlike classic chess, which can take hours, which is also played online a lot, or what's called blitz chess, which is very, very quick and almost overwhelmingly confusing. There's a game which is the most popular game played called Rapids, and they're like about 10 minutes long. Speed chess. But it's very popular. It's played in competitions, so it's fast. So it's not like we maybe remember it from when we were growing up, when there were slightly dull men talking very slowly and things happening very quietly in the corner of a screen. This is much more of a dynamic game, and as I said, the psychology is absolutely at the heart of it. So learning from traitors and how important psychology can be to fold, and we're not folding into a format pretending it's there. The game's there. All we're doing is we're mapping around a natural competition. This competition exists. We're just making it into a specific sort of competition, rather like MasterChef does. So not dissimilar in sort of like in tone and style to that kind of show.
Okay, and what's the title of the series?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Up for grabs at the moment. There is, its working title is Chess Masters. There are a couple of other titles in the mix, and we're discussing that because we want to have a title, obviously, that makes people who who are interested in chess come to it. But we don't want to make people who aren't interested in chess think, "Whoa, that's not for me." But it will take time to grow an audience on a show like this.
And it's obviously, as you say, incredibly popular around the world. So that's a big blinking light above the format and format sales. How are you approaching that? Have you got a distribution partner in place yet?
So that's been, in fact, you're asking just the right question, because anyone who works in telly knows that's kind of like the kind of golden goose that we're all looking for. Look, we've been working. We're really lucky. We're agnostic when it comes to distribution partners. We work with everyone. We like everyone. We don't have an opinion. Different folks for different strokes, And so we've got 16 different distribution partners for different things. However, on this, we went to market, and I went and spoke to all the key people. I have to say everyone wanted it, and there was a competition, and it didn't come down to just who could pay the most, because there were people who would pay more than what we ended up with. We ended up with Nick Smith at All 3 Media, because he is, I just really respected his approach towards what I was talking about this thing I love, and I needed to sit opposite someone who said I love it too. And although there are many people I respect in the world of distribution who are very keen to get this format because they could see the global potential in it, and already there are lots of pre-sales and blah blah blah, but what he did was he loved it. And actually, in a babyish way, because I'm a bit of a baby, Justin, and I like people who like me. I don't know, it's a bit simple with me, really. If you're nice to me, I like you. It's that easy. He before I saw him, our kind of like our distribution kind of like coordinator, brilliant, Jimmy Humphreys, said, "Oh, Nick doesn't like any formats. Nick's unlikely to go for it. You're very unlikely to have all 3 in the run." So I was like, "Okay, but we'll go and see them anyway," because they're one of the big boys, stroke girls. And I love Jane Turton and Sarah Gator as well. There is that too. But honestly, they won it because they had a holistic approach. And I'd learnt when I was at Fremantle about the wheel of value and about seeing a brand in a round way. And it's not just because of commercial kind of desire. Obviously, we want to make money, and obviously we hope it sells around the world. And obviously, we hope we can monetize around it. But obviously, I also would like to make something I'm really proud of, that I can turn around to my daughter and her chess geeky friends, and they can feel good about it, and that my community of television can say to me, "Oh, Camilla, you made that." I mean, it's pathetic, but these things still matter to me.
Of course they do. Well, hopefully Nick can replicate the success that he's had with Traitors, right? And taking that around the world, which has been last year's hottest format, or certainly for the last 18 months, and really the format that's really become almost a super format for the first time in a number of years. Well, best of luck with all of that. I can't wait to see it, and I look forward to seeing all those deals coming through with international partners. So as we leave Edinburgh, looking forward to the rest of the year and into the next year, How are you at Curve Media approaching this market now? You said that, you know, there's obviously lots of different types of content being discussed and lots of different mediums being discussed, lots of different formats. Where are you focusing your efforts over the next 12 months?
I think it's a fragmented market. People haven't talked enough about that, and I respect the fragmented market. In fact, I thrive in a fragmented market. When we first set up Curve, we were mocked by certain people who were quite snobby, and they went, oh, what kind of... I don't understand what kind of programmes you make. What kind of programmes do you make? Are you a film maker? What kind of programmes do you make? And I was like, well, I've made documentaries, I've won BAFTAs, I've won RTS&Ms, but I love making daytime shows massively. I bloody love them. And because we've always worked across the market, I love specialist factual. Massive passion. Ran science at BBC One for 3 years. It's a world I love. I love all different bits of the world. I like telly, I like content, I like stories, and that is in a weird way our strength going forward. So what we're doing now is, as I was saying to you before, Justin, I'm open to podcasts and YouTube. I'm open to working in interesting ways with different people. One of our most successful brands at Curve is How Do They Build That? How Do They Build That was brilliantly backed by Paul Heaney back at TCB. And he went and he said, we had a conversation together. I had been across, I'd looked after the grand designs for 7 or 8 years. And he said to me, what can we do in that kind of space? And we came up with this idea. How do they build that kind of international grand designs, kind of like in the technical space? He brilliantly went and got all different sorts of pre-sale funding on it. No commissioner at all was attached to that programme. However, Series 1 was like that. Series 2, it'd been shown on Smithsonian. It rated through the roof. It was the highest rated show on that channel, right? So Paramount Plus this year, who've commissioned nothing, commissioned 2 unscripted shows. This is Series 3 and Series 4 now we're talking about. Right, it's now with Jay Ellis, who's a Hollywood star, who's a fantastic, he was in Top Gun. It's a huge show. It's a huge budget. It's gone from being that to this. I mean, that's small to big, by the way, for those that can't see my fingers. But what it's taught me as a programme maker is don't be snobby. Speculate to accumulate. Put your heart across lots of different things. One of our greatest shows this year was On Thin Ice with Greenpeace versus Putin. Fantastic documentary series on BBC. I'm really proud of it. It's amazing. It's wonderful. I can tell you now, it will make us absolutely no money. I mean, you've got to just play in different ways and different way for different folks, and you've also got to just follow the story and go with what you're interested in and what you believe in, and not just look for the money, but don't go in one stream, because that's a disaster. So I am going to be speculating widely across the industry in lots of different ways.
Okay, and full commitment, full spectrum of ideas, but committed to those, super committed to all of the ones that you take on.
I mean, if chess allows that, I have to tell you, chess is pretty much taking up every waking and sleeping hour of mine. So it would be nice if I can fit any of this wonderful ambition of mine in, because I really want to land this correctly, so that I do credit to a great and not even centuries old, millennia old game. I can't be the first person to make a factual entertainment show and fuck it up. I mean, no one's going to forgive me, least of all my daughter.
Camilla, let's end there. Thank you so much. What a brilliant conversation. I really enjoyed this. I wish you all the very best, and can't wait to see the chess show on TV very soon.
Thanks, Justin. Speak soon.
Well, that's about it for another week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. TellyCast was produced by Spirit Studios and recorded in Edinburgh. For videos featuring the movers and shakers of the TV and digital content industries, just hit the subscribe button in the episode description or search TellyCast TV on YouTube. Until next week, stay safe.